Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm Peter Lavelle. George, the co-founder of the Gaggle, is with me, and we also have Daniel McAdams of the Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity. George and I have already talked earlier about the breaking news that President Trump and the First Lady do indeed have COVID-19, which I think is fair to say certainly makes everyone recalibrate how they're going to cover this campaign the last month and what President Trump is going to do if he cannot get out and about. And so, Daniel, I mean, this is 2020. This is the October surprise, I suppose. I mean, how does this reconfigure the campaign, if at all, in your mind?
Well, it's been certainly one of the weirdest, probably the weirdest campaign I've ever seen in my life. It's probably true for all of us, with the pandemic keeping Biden in his basement, and with Trump being confined for most of the year and finally getting out a little bit and now catching this virus. I think, the purpose of the Gaggle is to deal with media narratives. I think the media is going to be in a quandary with this one. We've already seen the media that despises Trump come out, certainly at least some individual journalists come out in a sort of a gleeful way. He deserves what he gets. But judging from what happened in Canada and in the UK, you do see that sitting prime ministers who get this and who get over it, which both of them thankfully did, they do see their numbers go up. So it's not a slam dunk for people that are happy that Trump is sick.
George.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very good point. And particularly if, as it may turn out, that while he's has tested positive for the virus, he may not get sick. And if he goes through this for 2 weeks, carrying on as normal, doing his presidential business, doing his rallies via Zoom, then I think it will only confirm more Trump's view, which is, okay, this is an unpleasant virus, but for God's sake, let's treat it like the bubonic plague. It's something that's doable, workable, and it's nowhere near as lethal as we were led to believe earlier this year.
But at the same time, I think that's an excellent answer, George, and Daniel, you led in that direction. But what this does is it puts COVID-19 front and center for the last month of the campaign. And I think since this is to challenge and destroy media narratives, I will speak for myself. I don't know what to believe from the media about this virus whatsoever. I find it very confusing. I find it intentionally opaque much of the time. I'm sick and tired of it being used as a political cudgel. And who are the biggest victims of this? It's people that contracted here. Now, of course, people are going to say, they're going to say, we told you so, Mr. President. Okay, and, we were all prepared for that. But at the end of the day, it's in something I predicted long ago, is that this was going to be about how we perceive this virus and how the authorities have reacted to it. Okay, and of course we have to throw in the enormous economic dysfunction that is ported into everyone's lives because of this here. So, Daniel, I mean, depending on who you ask, I mean, this is either no liability or a huge liability for the president, because that's all we're going to talk about while he's in quarantine. And of course, we have no idea how he's going to react to it. Is it just going to be mild? It appears that he doesn't even have it at all. Or if he gets like Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson did have a battle with it apparently here. So it's all front and center, COVID-19.
It is, and apparently the latest is that he's suffering from mild symptoms at this point. There are a few questions. First of all, and I like how you put this, Peter, but I think we also have to look at two separate things happening. One is a virus. It's a medical condition that people have suffered from. There's no question about it, particularly those who fall into certain categories. And alarmingly, President Trump is in a few of those categories. I have to say, he's not the healthiest looking guy. I sympathize with him. He's up there in age. But you separate that from the political aspect of the pandemic, and that is different. And that in the U.S. particularly is completely apolitical, a political issue. The entire sort of Democratic Party after Russiagate fell apart, after the Mueller report fell flat. They latched onto this as their last best hope to get rid of Trump. And you can see very clearly in the United States, there is a sharp ideological divide between those who don't believe the nation should be shut down completely and millions be put out of work for a virus, and those, particularly those in the white-collar community who are able to work from home, who tend to lean left. They are thrilled with this, and they see it as an opportunity for political power.
That's exactly right, and it is a fascinating the line that the Democrats are running with against Trump. The economic downturn is all his fault. He's the one who's driven the economy into the ground. And what's our remedy? We need to shut the economy down even more strongly than Trump has done. Now, the contradiction is so obvious, but it may be enough to get them over the finish line. And they will undoubtedly seize on this, while, of course, shedding crocodile tears of sympathy for Trump. Nancy Pelosi will probably offer to go to the White House and bring him some chicken soup to help him recover. Maybe I'm absolutely going to run with this all the way to the election.
Maybe she'll bring over her designer chocolate ice cream from her $12,000 freezer. Okay, Daniel, how does the campaign proceed? Because George and I had a disagreement. How does the Hatch Act apply? I mean, can Trump continue campaigning from his residence? I mean, he's under quarantine. I mean, I don't know if the Hatch Act envisions something like this. Go ahead.
That's an excellent question, and I'll be honest, I had not thought of that, so I don't know exactly how to answer it. I don't know the technical details of how they'll work that out, but it's difficult for me to imagine the president being forced to completely give up campaigning in these last crucial few weeks because he's taken ill. So all the other rules in the entire world seem to have been bent this year, and then some. So I would imagine some sort of accommodation might be worked out for that.
Right. I looked up a little bit of this. I mean, again, this is just non-expert. I just looked up on Google, and they seem to be making a distinction between what the president and the vice president personally can do. Yes, they can use their office to campaign, but they can't really use federal workers for that. So it's a kind of bizarre thing that Trump himself can go and do a broadcast out of the Oval Office to his supporters, but he can't ask a federal worker to set up the system.
That makes sense.
Well, I guess maybe Jared has some good use to him after all. Maybe Jared can do it for him. Okay. But Daniel, I mean, no matter what Trump does, people are going to make this charge against him. Though, Mike Pompeo during the RNC, he clearly, in my mind, violated the Hatch Act. But he is the Secretary of State, and as George has pointed out, the president and the vice president are given dispensations here, and I guess everyone will dig into the weeds on this one here. But I mean, this shouldn't stop him from campaigning in a virtual way. Also, George and I've also reflected upon, even if Trump does that, he's not very effective at it, is he?
Well, he does best in big crowds. That's where he gets his energy from, and that's where he connects. But I don't think there are any Trump voters right now who are looking at him with potentially being ill, saying, you know what, I'm not going to vote for the guy. Yeah. So I don't see that hurting. And in fact, I think he could certainly make lemonade out of these lemons. And look at this scenario. What if he vocally and publicly says, look, I'm taking hydroxychloroquine and zinc and azithromycin. My doctor says it's a good move. The CDC and Fauci and Gates don't want me to do that because they want to make a few $1 billion off of this. But I'm taking it, I've taken it, and I've gotten over it. That would be an incredible thing for him, and it would really rock his base.
So, George, Daniel that's such an interesting strategy. If it's going to be political, let's make it totally political.
Right. No, I that's exactly right. I mean, I think that would be a very good move for him. And I think functioning normally, or as normally as possible, would also work for him. Basically, let's calm down. let's not get hysterical. This virus has lost its toxicity that it had back in April. We can all essentially go back to work. I mean, because it's doable. Of course, if it goes the other way and he relapses and gets very ill, then of course that's not so good. But if he's able to function and he's doing everything as per usual, I think that's going to work to his advantage.
Daniel, this is, in looking at the big picture, you started out in your first answers that, we have never, ever seen a campaign like this. Certainly not in my lifetime. I think that there's a great sense of exhaustion in the country as well. Okay, and in an odd way, Trump's contraction of the virus may actually help a lot of people, and even across the aisle. I would kind of hope to reassess the human dimension of all of this, because I think that's so largely forgotten right now when we have such deep partisan divisions, and it's so, George used the word toxic. Everything is so toxic. Every topic is toxic. Well, a man and his wife are ill. Is it possible can the body politic take a breather and just say, I hope our president can get well? I don't think so, but I would like to think that. Go ahead.
Don't hold your breath, Peter, on that one. But toxic and also superficial, incredibly superficial. And someone else said this, I saw earlier, that it's amazing these entire 4 years that Trump's opposition, the Democrats, the people who dislike him, can't come up with anything more than, oh, he's a racist. Oh, he's got weird skin. It's just amazing. Those of us, and Peter and George, you included, those of us who've been very critical of his policies are particularly frustrated. And in fact, the idiocy of the attacks on him, the superficiality of the attacks on him, actually have made me feel more sympathetic to him over this period. Oh yeah, your detractors are so stupid and so evil. I kind of like you for standing up to them, and it's a weird feeling.
No, I just to echo that, and that's exactly the feeling that one got during the debate when Chris Wallace once again wheeled out that tiresome nonsense about Charlottesville and how Trump said that there were good people on both sides. I mean, this is, it's all of this is on tape. It's not like there's any kind of debate about this. You go to YouTube and you have Trump saying what he said about that, but that doesn't apply to fascists and white nationalists.
It's about the people that were there either for or against a statue. That's the people he was talking about. Okay. Exactly. When Joe Biden said, about these the bounties on American soldiers in Afghanistan, absolutely debunked. Totally. I mean, I've seen this repeatedly on left-wing television. It's debunked, but actually I've seen people push back, and they just it goes in one ear out the other, and they just keep talking. That's what's really frustrating. George is he's really pushing me to come around to his position here, and he's making some progress here. The thing is that in looking at the debate, and now with the illness here. Personally, as a conservative, and I don't see Trump as a conservative. Let's be clear, he's not. Okay, but after 4 years, because we can throw in the campaign in 2016, after 4 years of himself being pillared and bullied, I can understand, George. I'm moving in your direction. I can understand how and why he acted the way he did during the debate. Nonetheless, it doesn't absolve the fact that it was awful viewing for the audience of all stripes. Daniel, I'm going to let you finish up here. Go ahead.
It was rough going. I did have a little wine with me, so that helped to sort of dull the pain of them yelling. But it's funny you mentioned the bounties. Also, Biden was able to get out your Putin's puppy. I mean, this is Are we in January, or are we back in November? Are we 4 years ago? It's amazing. And then when Trump tried to strike back and talk about who's actually in the pay of a foreign government, which is his own son, and him by proxy, of course, Chris Wallace stepped in and changed the subject. So it was an appalling event. The only downside, if you remember back 4 years ago, Trump was not spectacular in his first debate.
He was awful. But he was entertaining. He was entertaining.
Right. Indeed, but he hit his stride at the second debate. And if we're deprived of that, that might actually hurt him if he's about to hit his stride.
All righty.
Yeah.
Daniel, George, thank you for being on the Gaggle here. I guess one of the big questions that's going to be left out there, will there be any more debates? If there's any knowledge one way or another answering that question, we're going to be right back here. But please like, share, and subscribe, and the Gaggle will have much more ahead.